There we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name's Tony. Thank you for joining us. Once again, I kind of hit the mute button there so you couldn't hear me warming up my vocals in the background. You don't want to hear that gargling. That's crazy. Let's talk about today. If you're joining us live, then thank you so much for joining us live here on Star Trek New Worlds. And if you're catching us on the replay, then thank you for taking the time. Star Trek New Worlds is a 4X turn-based strategy game that we play online here with you, or at least for you to view. We play it using the Federation and Empire rule set as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau. We play it on a platform called Vassal, which is the maps you'll see here in a moment. And of course, we play it with the lovely players, part of our community, which we hope you will become a part of. If you are interested in things strategy, turn-based, and perhaps Star Trek or sci-fi oriented, then please consider subscribing to the channel, helping us in our mission to get to 500 subscribers, just to unlock features in YouTube, then we would greatly appreciate it. But let's get into the stuff for today. In today's exciting episode, we have, is it a war or police action? We're killing bats and birds today. The matter of minor factions. Pick any one of those titles for today's episode. We are stomping the Batman faction. What? What happened there? The wolves go a-hunting. We have a player that dominates how many planets? And of course, we have the turn 44 reveal. The turn 44 reveal with going around the neighborhood, seeing where everyone is. And of course, we'll get to that in a moment. But before we get into the Fearsome Four, the Dynamic Duo, and all the other players that are in the mix, let's address what we mentioned last week and the video you were probably waiting for all of last week around the Orions. And I say this sort of in the spirit of our latest subscriber that you can see there, Orion Star. The Orion faction in last week's live stream, we brought this up to the interest that we had to be able to, introduce another faction, another way of playing in the game, and that was Orion Pirates. We were going to introduce Orion cartels into the game. There is a rule set in the Federation Empire rules that allows for Orions to become a playable faction. Now, I think we got ahead of our skis a bit here in that it's a really neat idea and we really want to make it work. The problem is, as we were exploring the rules and trying to figure out and map out for that video exactly how it was going to play out for the players who would participate, we saw two big things happening. One, in order to include Orions into the game, it would really slow things down. And for anyone who likes turn-based games, but at the same time, likes things to keep going at a reasonable pace, it was going to slow the game down so much so that it was going to really impact the fun of the other players. There was also an issue around the mechanics of the game. Because of the way Orions are introduced in the Federation Empire rule set, they provide a different element, but in the context of this 4X game, not the standard tabletop, which is what this is based on, there wasn't a seamless way to be able to introduce them and have the Orion players have fun. And at the end of the day, we're here to have fun. At the end of the day, if you are playing this game with us, if you want to play this game with us, you want to have fun. And we don't want to include a faction, a way of playing that's going to be cumbersome for you, that's going to be a drag, that's going to be something that's not exciting. So, what does that mean? Well, what we're going to do as an alternative is we're going to start to introduce other factions into the game. So we have currently 10 players in the game. We were looking to introduce as many as 3 Orion factions. What we are going to do is we are going to, in the coming weeks, we are going to discuss and map out how we would potentially introduce other player factions into the game. For those of you who have been following the channel with any degree of length in last year, you would have seen when we introduced a number of players into the last campaign that we were playing. And they were essentially kind of minor factions on steroids. They were smaller empires that were introduced in the game later in the game. And this allowed for a couple things. One, it created some more dynamic and exciting things happening in the playing of the game. It allowed those players to be able to get used to the mechanics, the rule set, the flow of how we play the game so that they could seamlessly integrate into the next campaign without too much issue. And in fact, those players are now some of the major factions in this game. and it allowed increasing the overall player base of the game. So we don't know what the magic number is yet of how many other players we want to introduce. We are looking to potentially introduce a number of factions depending on the factions that we have available in Vassal. There are some things that we can do to be able to play with that, but we are still working those mechanics out. So in the interests of full transparency, so that you know what's going on in this head, in our community, and what's going on, we are looking to be able to create more options to bring in more players, to include more players from our community in this campaign. The Orions was one way to do that. It seemed like when we kind of dove into the rules that was not going to work out. That was not going to be fun for you and not fun for everybody. So we kiboshed that. And so we are now looking at including other player factions into the game and seeing how that will work. We're still working that piece out. So be kind of, there will be more news coming in about that in the days to come. So hopefully that sort of helps address some of that issue. I know that it's been something that's been weighing on me throughout the week, in the sense that I had promised you that we were going to come up with a video around that. And then, of course, the sort of the back end mechanics around it were all jumbled and it was becoming an issue. And I just wanted to sort that out. So we will be introducing more player factions, more sort of minor empires. Not minor factions, but like you see in the game, but sort of like, I say, like minor factions on steroids. But we'll be opening up an opportunity for more players to be able to join the game. So be on the lookout for that. So without further ado, let's get into the fun stuff for today. Let's take a quick look at the chat and see who has joined us today. So right off the top, we've got Chuck, we've got Bill, Jim with his hydrants is charging his hell guns. We've got Paul. So Paul, Bill, Chuck. I guess that's all of us. Paul, Bill, Chuck. I feel like I'm missing somebody. Oh, well, the Orion Star. Is Orion Star out there today? If so, hello. Yes, hello to Orion Star, our newest subscriber. Thank you so much for joining our community here. Gorn's unknown, usually for lying. Gorn's unknown, usually for lying, just told a big fat fib. Okay. Well, we'll see. The turn today, or the exciting news for today, is that we've got some exciting developments with regards to the encounters with bats and birds, and we'll get to that in a moment. And some exciting things as far as the overarching narrative for some of these players. So let's get right into it. Let's not hold back. Let's jump into our Fearsome Four. The Fearsome Four is the big map, and we will go to it right now. All right, here we go. So this is the Fearsome Four. Now, normally I go from the top to the bottom. Let's go right to the bottom, which is the Carnivons. Now, the Carnivons are the wolves in this context, and the wolves went out and attacked this player. Let me zoom in here so that you can see it a little bit better. They attacked this minor faction right here. This was a Paravian planet, hence the birds in our bats and birds. Paravians are essentially feathered Gorn, and they were a minor planet, or a developing planet here, that basically told the Carnivons to go pound sand. So the Carnivons turned around and said, yes, we'll pound your sand, or rather you into the sand. And that's what they did. So they took their wonderful big bad den fleet and stomped them into oblivion. Just as a reminder of den fleet, let's take a quick look at it. We have a total of 4 CAs at a 3-6 split. We have 3 DDs, 2 4s. We have a commando cruiser. Sorry, a commando. Is it a cruiser? It's a 5. So yeah, probably a commando cruiser. We have a drone bombardment ship, and we have a frigate. Now, I think there were some other ships included in this as well, such as this YDD over here on the side. But basically this fleet went over and stomped the Paravians. One sec. The exciting bit about this, oh wow. Okay. So there's a lot of exciting developments on this map, And so that I kind of keep the flow here, let's start with the basics. Let's go to EP and see what's going on for EP on the big fearsome four. So the Carnivon are 29.5 EP. The Hydrons, big 30, 30. The ISC are 31.5. Ba-boom, cha-ching. And the Remans are 29. Oh my God. Okay, so these guys are all knocking at the door of the Klingon economic supremacy, which is, of course, perturbing at the very least. But nonetheless, Carnivons are 29.5, Hydrons 30, ISC 31.5, and the Remans 29. So that brings our average just a little, like somewhere between 29.5 and 30. That's pretty good as far as economic advancement in this game. That's really good. Let's take a look at fleet cap and get excited about who's who in the zoo. Carnivon with a total of 30 ships, 30 ship equivalents with a 64-140 split. That is a potent fleet without a doubt. The Hydrons, 35 ship equivalents, now matching the Carnivon at a 65-130 split. Very, very good. The ISC building up their fleet, they're at a 19 ship equivalent, so just a little, about 2/3 or almost a little, somewhere between 2/3 and a half of the Hydrons, and they are at a 59-99 split. I find that so interesting. The ISC ships are just that much sort of tougher in the sense that it's only a 6-point difference in the attack factor, and there's like a difference of 16 ships. That's impressive. The Remans have 34 ship equivalents, again, really good, with a 91-135 split. And I'm missing somebody. Remans 34, ISC, Hydra. Okay, no, that's it. That's all. So this is really interesting. All the members of the Fearsome Four seem to be really sort of building out their fleets, which is good. But there is certainly a, shall we say, an effort afoot to build out the fleets. So let's take a quick look at the Carnivon map. One of the things I find particularly interesting about this map, so we have, of course, the beating of the birds, shall we say. The wolves went into the forest, or the deep dark of the unexplored, found this Paravian planet, beat the bushes. The birds came flying out, and they stomped them hard. So the birds are taken out. Now, what's interesting, I can't remember, and you can remind me in the comments, if this particular wormhole, and we can see the iconography here, right? There's this diamond shape around the hex. So if they have triangles pointing in, it's an innie, so to speak. If they're pointing out, it's an outie, in the sense of a one-way gravity well. And if they're diamonds like this, then it's a two-way wormhole. What's so profound about this particular thing, or this particular development, is, so we had this wormhole here. That's great. I feel like that wasn't there before, but maybe it was. Maybe that's the one they sent through. So that, okay. All right. So I don't remember. Let's zoom out here. So I don't see another wormhole here. So that the Kilo with the K wormhole wasn't explored yet. But there is a Juliet wormhole over top the Carnivon homeworld. On top of it. And they've sent somebody through. They've sent a ship through that, they've sent a ship through that wormhole, and it's popped out over here at Romeo 42, right over my head. You can see there. So that is really interesting. I can't remember if that wormhole was there or not. I feel like that wasn't there before. That's a new development. And that's really cool. So what's so neat about wormholes in this game is, if you think you like your traditional strategy game, you're able to create fronts or borders and really sort of build yourself some time and space between your enemy and you. No big deal. The problem here is that with a wormhole, or the advantage here with a wormhole, is that it's a short circuit. It's a roundabout. It's a way to be able to, or bypass. It's a way to short circuit those fronts and get into sort of like the back end of another player's borders. or it's a highway to get somewhere and do bad things. The fact that it's exactly on the homeworld, that's so interesting, because whoever's on the other side of it, and I think we know who it is, we'll see there in a second, if they go through that wormhole and show up in the home system, like the capital system of the Carnivon, that could be a really bad day for the Carnivon. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting wormhole to deal with. I'm sure the Carnivons are coming up with a plan as we speak to be able to deal with that issue. Let's roll up into the Hydrant space and see what exciting things are happening for the Hydrants. I'm going to take a quick sip of water as I can feel. There we are. Okay. So when we're looking here at the Hydrants, what I find so particularly interesting, we have, of course, my favorite little group here is the Klingon Fleet around this minor planet. So let's just take a quick look at the Klingon Fleet apocalypse. Let's see if they've grown at all. I want to say they have. No, they haven't. So we've got 3 frigates, E2s, 3 destroyers, the F4s, and a cruiser. So that fleet hasn't grown by any significant size. What they do have, sort of in addition, is 2 YPGBs, so planetary ground bases of the Y era. They have a YBS. So the significance of the YPGBs is that each one of those brings a EW, a point of EW. And if you don't understand, or you when I say EW or electronic warfare, you don't understand how that works in combat, then go check out our combat tutorial video that you'll find in the New Worlds playlist. And you'll be able to see there that at the very end of that video, I talk about electronic warfare and how it involves itself in combat. Each planetary ground base brings 1 point of EW, which means that with 2 of them, they'll have the ability to sort of win out any EW fight, and they'll bring an EW shift to any battle without compromising anything from the YBS, because the YBS also has it as well. That's really interesting. So interesting fleet. We have First Fleet from the Hydrants. Let's take a quick look. I don't think anything has changed in First Fleet. So First Fleet, again, just a couple frigates escorting their W era survey ship. We have down here, and this is the fun part. So if you remember, a couple streams ago, we talked about the Hydrants campaign, jihad, you might say, against the Tholians. The Hydrants are this, as a faction from the role-playing perspective, they are this religious theocracy that is looking to spread the word across the galaxy. And from their perspective, the Tholians specifically, they had a minor faction of Tholians over on the far right of this map, right where Fourth Fleet is, right up here in the top right corner there. Whoop, up there. Up there that you can see. And so there was a narrative piece of the story where an errand damaged Tholian ship exploded in the atmosphere of the Hydrant homeworld, causing massive environmental damage. That led to a particular approach to Tholians that was highly aggressive. So they went over and stomped those Tholians. And they've adopted a policy whereby Tholians are the sort of the absolute antithetical position to them. They are the opposite of them. They have to go kill them. They are I'm missing the word. They are oh my God. Anyways, they're the enemy that they're going to persecute throughout the universe. And it just so happens that right now a Tholian ship has come through, and we'll see when we go to the Tholian map, you'll see what this is. But a Tholian ship has come through either a wormhole or a gravity well, and it has popped up in this fog of war space. So a couple things about sort of the iconography here. When you've got the gravity well, and I'll show you here up here. So for example, Destiny Fleet, let's take away ships and bases for a sec so it's easier to see. See how this is these diamonds pointing in? That is a innie for a gravity well, so in only. And the out was when these diamonds are pointing the other way. And as that's hit this right here, for example, in Whiskey 24, that's an out. Now the diamonds were the two-way, and so you're wondering what the heck is this swirly? So the swirly is a legacy graphic that we used in the past for wormholes, but what it is we're using it in this case to indicate a gravitational anomaly or like a wormhole type event. But you'll see that this is a fog of war hex. So the hydrants who are in this hex don't know if this is a wormhole two-way or just a gravity well out. They don't know yet because they haven't explored the hex. But when they do, excuse me, I'm obviously congested today. Then they'll be able to figure that out. For right now, this swirly thing indicates a sort of an unknown gravity well or unknown wormhole. They just don't know which one it is. So let's bring back the ships and the bases here for a sec. All right. So what we can see here is we've got a Hydran command cruiser with a prime team on it, and a Tholian YPC has come through. So the Tholian sent something through their wormhole. It popped out here, and it just so happens that the Hydrans have encountered them. So first of all, they encountered the Klingons, and the Klingons gave them a right stomping. Now they encounter a wormhole, potentially, from the a Tholian ship coming through, which is their absolute, their number one enemy. And I would imagine there's going to be a little bit of laser focus on this particular area and perhaps the Tholians specifically. It'll be very, very interesting. All right, let's look at other things here in the map. Let's take a look at the Hydran capital system. So a couple things. We knew that there was a revolt in the Hydran home system, and this planet here, which is a minor planet, so normally 3 EP you get from that, but he had to attack it and devastate it. So he devastated that planet, and so that's why you see the DEV0. So it has now 10 turns to be able to recover or come out of devastation, and then there'll be 4 more turns of development, and then it'll be fully operational, so to speak. So basically, we've got about a good chunk of time before this is pumping out 3 EP, and of course it's unhappy. So this is something that got sorted out in the home system for the Hydrans, and they're moving forward. Hence now they're 30 EP. I can see chat going like crazy over here on the side. I'll after we're done with the Hydrans, I'll switch over to the chat real quick, and then we'll go up to the top 2 here on the Fearsome 4. All right, so another couple little things that are interesting to note. As you've seen on other maps, we've got these blue guys, which are the Hydrans, right? Or sorry, the Orions. So the Orions have been floating around in Hydran space, and it would seem to indicate, based on the look at these ships floating around in this area, it seems that there's some relationship between the Hydrans and the Orions. For all the other players out there, keep an eye out on that. But I've never seen in any of the games that we've played the Orions as a non-player character further develop their own bases. Like they have a YBS. I've never seen them grow it into a YDK. And yet, here, we can see that this particular Orion faction is growing their YBS into a YDK. Why would that be? It makes me think that the Hydrans are pumping money into those Orions, and they are potentially building that base up for something. Are they building it up because the Orions are going to use it to perhaps raid into ISC space? Is somebody else funding the Orions and they're going to use that as a way to attack the Hydrans? I don't know. Because of the sort of the way the map is and what we've seen from the Orions and the Hydrans and how it would seem that they are working closely together, the suspicious part of me says that the Hydrans have got something going on with the Orions, and they're funding them into building up this YDK for some dastardly purpose. What do you think? We'll see. We'll see in the coming turns what comes of that YDK, but I'd be very interested to see when it's all said and done who is responsible for that. It'd be very interesting. Oh, one thing before I sort of move on. We had seen this sort of buildup of ships on the capital for the Hydrons, and this was basically a whole bunch of the ships that they'd used to stomp the Tholians before, repairing, recovering, and moving their way back out. Now that looks like it's decreasing, and there's this Royal Fleet here. And I think if we take a quick look at Royal Fleet, oh my goodness, Noble Fleets. Royal Fleet is a grenadier, so a cruiser, which is got a name on it called Grunda. I mean, I could make a comment about Grunda being, you know, your I won't even go down that road. But nonetheless, we have a five vols, so 5 frigates with a cruiser Grunda. And they're going, obviously, in this direction. I'm not sure what the interesting deal will be with that. Obviously, they're going to go, I was thinking maybe go help deal with the apocalypse. But we shall see. The Hydrons also have Second Fleet there. What's in Second Fleet? Oh, and they've got another cruiser here with a bunch of frigates. So between Royal Fleet and Second Fleet, it looks like those two combined will try and stomp Apocalypse at the very least, and we'll see what comes of that. That'll be interesting to see how that works out for them. Because, of course, they got some other ships in the area too. Very, very interesting. So I said I'd switch back to the chat real quick. Here we go. All right, let's take a quick look at the chat. Woo, woo, woo. All right. Oh, I can see that we've got a Russian bot in here. That's always nice to see. Let's just quickly report that. All right, that's gone. All right, all right, all right, all right. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so let's see. The wormhole mover, the Carnarvon planet, has moved from somewhere to over. The wormhole mover, the Carnarvon planet, has moved from somewhere to over the Carnarvon capital. Well, certainly that wormhole has appeared over the Carnarvon capital home system, so it'll be very interesting. I'm not sure if that's it. I don't think that's a moving wormhole as much as just appearing there, but we'll see. I mean, if Daniel, our GM, was in the chat today, which of course he's not, we would be able to see that. Or we'd be able to ask him that and get an answer. We've got Armageddon built a new Y PGB. Yep. So the Klingons built a new Y planetary ground base. Again, just another way for them to add a little something. Because one of the things about, and again, this goes back to our combat module. If you go back to combat and check out that video, one of the things about command factors is that planetary ground bases and bases don't count towards your command factor. So in the event of the Klingons, for example, in that example, they had a cruiser and 3 destroyers and 3 frigates. That's a total of 7 ships. Now they have a command factor of 8, which means they could command a total of 9 ships in a fleet. So they still got room for 2 more there. But they can add a whole bunch of planetary ground bases. Theoretically, they could have 10 planetary ground bases, and they don't count towards command factor. They could all be included in the fight. And that's an extra 10 attack factors and 20 defense factors that can soak up damage. The only thing about planetary ground bases, though, is they don't soak up, they don't have a cripple. So you can't cripple them like you can ships and then destroy them. They just get destroyed. So they, but they are cheap to build. So, you know, 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. They can really add some good punch to the fight. Let's see here. Wow, Hydron's got 2 people who don't like them. 2, yes, right, that's right. 2 people that don't like them, of course. Don't forget the YCA and YCR, Bill says. Third Fleet is the Royal, I'm going to say that's Royal Fleet. Yeah, okay, there you go. Royal Fleet. Third Fleet is the Royal Fleet. And Charles, has everyone been getting the emails I've been pumping out? Pumping out? I mean, I'm not sure what you do with little dogs, but I mean, fair enough. But yes, pumping out emails. There are in our game, so that all of you that are watching, we have a Discord channel. We use that Discord channel as a way to be able to build our community and talk to each other. Just we have so much fun throwing barbs and sort of witty commentary. Depending on whether it's witty or not, I think that's subjective, but nonetheless, we have fun with each other on our Discord channel. We also use it as an avenue for diplomacy, for in-game stuff that happens. We also have a channel for questions about rules, and we have a narrative or storyline a channel that, channel on the Discord channel that where we flesh out some of the RP story elements that are going on in the game. And so that's one of the sort of the features and the fun parts for us playing in part of this community. So if you were watching this video now, what are we, 30 minutes in, and you want to be part of this game, or you have subscribed to this channel, would being part of that Discord be of value to you? Would you want to be included in our Discord channel and be able to participate in the witty banter, commentary, rules chit chat, even read the story narrative that's going on? Is that something that would be of interest to you? And if so, that would be, is that something you'd want to be a part of? If so, please add that in, maybe not the chat here, but let's add that in the comments below for the video if you're watching this on the replay. And let us know about if that's something you'd like. Also, in the very top of the chat here, and I'll put it in the comments, I'll pin it in the comments for the replay, you can head over to Facebook. We have a Facebook page that that you can reach out and connect with us with Facebook Messenger. So if you follow the page and you can send out on Facebook Messenger, you can connect with us and also let us know that way. But if being part of our Discord is something that would be of interest to you, then please put that in the comments below and let us know that is something you would like. All right, let's head back to the Fearsome 4 map and talk about the top two. All right. Let's talk about the ISC. The ISC, one of my favorite factions just because of the beefiness of their ships. We have not exactly a lot of crazy developments here, certainly not, but let's take away the ships for a sec, and we can see that their sort of base building infrastructure project plan is coming out rather slowly here. So we've seen this sort of L shape before, and in the sense that they've had those bases built there before. It's just, you can see there's a tug here. It looks as though at this point the tug is getting ready to build a base and then extend the reach so they can explore their backyard. Backyard being the term, behind the borders. We have, of course, a number of fleets that are sort of pre-positioned along the border with the Hydrons, whether that's for holding the Orions back or whatever the case may be. It'll be interesting to see how that works. We've got, of course, the gravity well that is here. We've got Destiny Fleet. Now let's just take a quick look at ISC named echelons. So Destiny is a YCL with an R&D team. So again, this is them conducting research and trying to find out more and move the technology forward with regards to wormholes, which is a real advantage for them because then they can start using wormholes strategically. Wow, we've got quite a few ships here. So we've got Truth, Integrity, and Justice. So let's pull that up for a sec. Named echelons. So Truth, my goodness, where's Truth? So Integrity is YCL with a Marshal. Where's Truth? Truth is a YCA with a YCL. So the YCA, interesting, it's a 4-7 ship. So a little bit better than some of the other CAs, YCAs in the game, in the sense that most of us have some of us have a 4-6. He's got a 4-7. And so we've got Justice, Truth, and Integrity. So Integrity, again, just a YCL with a prime team. So a number of ships here. I think this is really fundamentally around trying to move the exploration needle forward on this stretch to the right, or stretch to the left. And of course, they've discovered an Orion faction or an Orion base here with a YLR, so Light Raider, Y-era Light Raider. And so whether they decide to use their Orions or destroy their Orions, that's up to them. Of course, we have another Orion base in the north here, so it would seem as though the ISC are playing nice with their Orions for now. That, by contrast, is not the way the Remans are playing. So in the Reman, on the Reman map, we had an Orion base up here in the north, and we had one down here in the south. You will notice there is nothing there. So the Remans decided to decimate the Orions in the last couple turns. Wow. Okay, so Prometheus, let's pull up the Reman Prometheus fleet. We can see that we've got a bunch of crippled frigates here, and that is definitely a result of destroying the Orion base. So two cruisers, a destroyer, and they had a total of, looks like 4 frigates, 3 of which are crippled. So that's good. That's all in Prometheus fleet. They're making their way, it would seem, back to the homeworld for repairs. Now, Cerberus and New Fleet, let's take a look at this. Cerberus fleet is, wow, another one of these big bad fleets. 4 frigates, 2 destroyers, and 2 cruisers. Man, the Remans are building some pretty badass ships. This is good. So Cerberus, and what's in the home fleet, or the new fleet rather, Reman New Fleet. Wow. Again, we got a couple of W era frigates, which are the KE-1s, then the Y era ones, which are the KE-2s, and then KF-4s, which are the destroyers. So he's building out these fleets with 2 cruisers, 2 destroyers, and 4 frigates. That's a good combo and brings a lot of punch to any particular fight. The frigates can soak up some damage while the rest of the ships bring the firepower. This is interesting. The Remans are definitely quite more militant than some of the other factions that we've seen, or at least how we've seen those factions execute what they're doing. Now, one of the things about this is that we haven't really seen a strong, what do you want to call it? We haven't seen a strong push on their exploration. There's been much more of a militant focus, which is good. But of course, we do have ships on the edge of their space pushing out that exploration, and we see that going on here. Another note is this Romeo wormhole, which I don't recall seeing there before. And so it'll be interesting to see if the Reman sends somebody through there and figure out what's going on. Because I can't pronounce this name that he's got here for Pacific Fleet, let's just take a quick look at, is it Pacific Fleet? Yeah, Pacific Fleet. So Reman, am I blind? Can I not see? Oh, Pacifica Fleet, that's what it is. So you can see also, again, the same ship or the same fleet composition, only in this case he's got 3 cruisers, my goodness, 2 destroyers, and 3 frigates. The frigates are all crippled. That's obviously from destroying his Orion faction within his space. So that's really interesting. The fact that not only has he destroyed all his Orions, but the Reman faction is really building out an impressive fleet. Going back to fleet cap real quick, just looking at the Remans, again, 34 fleet cap, 34 ship equivalents with a 90, 91, 135 split. If we look at the other, like, just put this into context. So 34 ships, very similar to everybody else. The Carnarvon have 30, Hydrants have 35, so in the same ballpark. But the attack factor, the difference in the attack factor, almost 30 more than everybody else. That's a big difference. And I think that comes from the reliant use of destroyers and cruisers in their fleet composition. So that's really cool. I got to say, I'm really liking with the way the Remans are going. Now, of course, being a Klingon, playing the Klingon faction, I really like their ships, but I digress. Let's take a moment and head over to the there we go. Let's head over to the Feds and the Tholians, as they were the ones on the other side of the map that kind of poked their head up in hydrant space. So we'll take a second and just head over there real quick. Just before I do so, though, let's take a quick look at the chat. So, okay, so sorry, I have an 8-pound cat crawling all over me. Puppies and kittens, eh? Okay, fair enough. Jim, look at Third Fleet and Royal Fleet in the same hex. My cat is also trying to sit on my keyboard. What's with you guys and your kitty cats? My goodness, no boundaries and limitations. Crazy. Bill Smith. Discuss how to get new players into the game Discuss how to get new players into game makes things work. Yeah, in the sense that like we talked about, put your comments in the my goodness. Add your comments below. There we go, in the recording here, and you can let us know what works best for you. Do you want to be included as one of these other minor factions that will be, or added player factions that will be adding to the game, and or do you want to participate and be added to the Discord channel, and would that be of value to you? So add those comments below in the comments, and then let us know if that's of value to you and if that's something you'd like to do. Charles, mine sits on my arms or shoulders. Paul, truth should be at QQ18 with diplomat. Truth. Oh, his truth fleet. Right. So let's just take a quick look at that. Truth. It is every once in a while, because of course this is all done when it comes to the maps and everything. We have a person who actually does all the moving of the maps and invests his time to be able to be the game master for this, which is Daniel, our game master. And so in the push to get these turns out, then there are some sort of typos that get missed. So as a player, it's important for us to be able to sort of like trust and verify and just double check that everything goes where it's supposed to go on the map. And if it doesn't, is there a reason for it? Like, was there some sort of in-universe or in-game reason why it didn't happen? Or is it just a mistake or a typo? And the game master is really good about being able to fix those things. So truth is supposed to be in Quebec 18. Where's Quebec 18? So Quebec 18 with the diplomat, right? So, okay, that's no big deal. It just meant that he was supposed to be on a planet instead of a different planet versus the one that he's on right now. Who knows? Like I say, typos happen, things like that occur. So let's jump into the Federation turn, and I will show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've zoomed out here just so that we can get a good perspective of what's going on. All right. I think there might have been a typo in the Hydran turn. We'll see. Okay, let me scroll down here real quick. So you can see over my head there is the Tholian ship has come through a wormhole, not a gravity well, a wormhole, and they are detecting a size class 3 ship just beside them, which would be that YCC with the prime team. So I think the Hydran ship is not actually on top of this wormhole, but is right beside it and is detecting the fact that there's a gravity anomaly there. So I think there might have been a typo there. I don't think the Grenadier from the Hydrans is on that hex, but rather beside it. However, they do know that it's a Tholian ship there, so I don't know. Like I say, that's a question. That's a typo question that we'll have to go ask the game master about. A couple other things. We can see that there is a wormhole down here, hotel, that looks like a Federation ship went through and is coming back up. So it is in Tango 39, this wormhole, and he's working his way back up. All right, so that would be this wormhole right here. And let's zoom in and have a better look at things. Okay. Whoops. All right. Okay, so let's just take away the ships. We can see the bases. So two things here. We've got a full-fledged wormhole, so two-way, and then a one innie gravity well right here near the Federation home system or capital system. So those are all pretty close. The wormhole specifically is an interesting sort of strategic. You can use it as an advantage if you want, depending on how quickly you explore that tech and use that. What we can also see here is, of course, there is a slow warp signature in the north part of Federation space. We had heard and seen that before in a couple turns previous. One of the things I'm noting is the construction of a base up here with the Feds. They've also got 8th Fleet up there. Let's just take a quick look at 8th Fleet. 8th Fleet is a YCA with a YFF. So they've got a couple of cruisers up here with prime teams. And then 9th Fleet, let's take a quick look at 9th Fleet. Again, a cruiser with a frigate. So 4 cruisers in the area with 2 frigates, lots of prime teams. And so this sort of represents, I wouldn't say like an overly militant reaction to detecting a neighbor in the top corner, but nonetheless, moving some ships up there to sort of have a presence. The other thing here is this sun snake. So again, when it comes to monsters in this game, monsters, the counter, the thing you see on the map, isn't necessarily what it is. In this case, it looks kind of like a snake. It has this SS, which is a sun snake. What are they? They're fundamentally this snake-like creature that floats through space, and they sort of breed in suns. But when they do that, they cause supernovas. And so if you have a planetary system, like a colony or something like that, and these sun snakes enter your system, there's a strong likelihood that they will nest in the sun and blow up the sun, killing the colony and destroying everything in that, or like destroying any of the assets in that hex. That's what that can do. Whether that is a sun snake or not, we'll see. The feds will have to send a ship there to encounter the monster and figure out what is it and what it can do. And I don't remember off the top of my head what the sort of like combat potential of a sun snake is. And there's a scale, or like there is a curve to monsters as the player factions get more powerful. Because after all, if you were just to introduce a really weak monster all the time, then it doesn't become a threat or an issue for players. At the same time, you don't want to introduce a doomsday device that can like destroy planets or something, and you don't have the capacity or the ships to be able to stop it. Like you don't have the power, the ability to stop that monster. So in order for the sort of a little bit of fairness in the game, the monsters scale with the development of the game. As the game goes on, and of course players get bigger, stronger, more robust fleets, the monsters get sort of harder as we go. So we'll have to see in the turns that come what happens with this sun snake. But as we go down the map here, we can see a real shift in focus. The feds used to, or in earlier turns, had really pushed this sort of northeastern search pattern where they were really pushing up into the northeast. And then when they encountered the Tholians, there was a real shift. And I can see this now. You've got both YFELs down here doing exploration. You've got 1, 2, 3. I want to say there's another one here somewhere. Oh, okay. Three cruisers with their prime teams down here. Doing more exploration to sort of broaden out that border. And I think that's really all just about trying to sort of flush out the border with the Tholians and trying to figure out what they are going to do there. Of course, we've still got the Kzinti faction, Happy Plus, so on the verge of potentially joining in a good way, joining the Federation. And then this, again, this colony, which is indifferent. It is a Carnivon colony, so it'll be really interesting to see how that develops. I like the name for it, New Kennel. Quite amusing. Pretty good. And then, of course, we've got this exchange of R&D teams that you'll see here in a second once the cursor decides to play nice. Okay, so the R&D team from the Tholians, and if we go down here, we've got an R&D team from the Fed. So they're doing this shared research piece between these two players. So what does that indicate? Obviously, they're getting along. They're working together. They're collaborating. And you can see also here a YCOM, which is a commercial convoy. What ends up happening there is you spend 2.5 EP to build this commercial convoy. You send it from one YDK or better location to another YDK or better location. They have to be at least 4 hexes away. And when they arrive on location, it generates twice the EP that it costs to build. So 2.5 to build, it generates 5 EP on its destination. So you get like a 2.5 EP bump, but it's where the convoy arrives that gets the bump. So Federation build it, they send it to the Tholians get the bump, and then the Tholians will build one and they'll send it back and forth and back and forth. That kind of thing. So let's take a look at the Tholians. What's interesting about the Tholians, we've got this Gorn planet that they've previously discovered. The Gorn are indifferent to them, so not particularly angry. But let's take a look at Gorn 8th Fleet, which is what they've got here. 8th. So they've got really nothing. They've got a couple of improved destroyers and an improved CC. So not great ships overall. But then again, the Tholians don't have big bad ships either. So it's kind of balanced. They've got planetary ground bases or a planetary ground base and a YBS. So it's not as if the Tholians can just go in there and stomp them. They've got the Tholians, that is, have their YFELs doing more search and exploration, sort of in this top section, working their way around the Gorn. You can also see they've got the ISC faction down here, a minor planet with a YDK, and third reserve fleet. So let's take a look at what that is. Third reserve. And that's a pretty significant fleet. That is so YCA, cruiser, destroyer, and 3 frigates. So that's pretty significant. I don't see the Tholians sort of removing them anytime soon. We can see that the Hydron planet they had, the other minor faction they have here, they are unhappy with the and there's Platinum. They are unhappy with the Tholians, and so if that keeps going in a bad way, then maybe they'll declare war, and there'll be a big bad thing that happens here, which will be exciting. The Hydrons have a Platinum fleet. Let's take a quick look. Platinum, shiny fleets. Platinum. Okay, so wow, 2 Y era frigates and a W era frigate. So nothing really to get too excited about. And they don't even have a base. Like they don't have a YBS or a YDK or anything. So I don't really see this as being a big threat for the Tholians. It might become a reason for them to mount a fleet to go in and stomp them, but we'll see how that goes. Interesting to note that they have a prime team there, which is the Wolf Spider, not a diplomat. So we'll see how that goes. They continue to explore down sort of on this southwestern front. You've got YPC with the diplomat. So it looks as though they had a minor faction that they just converted here. I don't know I can't remember what they were, but there's a developing planet they've converted. You've got Convoy here. Looks like they're going to probably build another base there as well. Wow. Look at this. So let's just pull away the bases for a sec. 1, 2. So this was a Paravian planet, Airy. High Hold. I can't remember what this was, but that's 2 planets that the Tholians have brought on board reasonably recently. So they're doing a pretty good job. I just realized I forgot to do the around the clock with EP and fleet cap. Let's take a quick look at their EP for both. The Federation is at 26. The Tholians are at 32. The Tholians at 32. So that puts them at the sort of near the top tier of the game. As of right now, with all the turns that we've seen, they are the highest economy that we can see in the game. So that's pretty impressive. And considering they've got all these other planets that they can access, they're on the verge of becoming the #1 economy in the game. When you look at fleet cap, we can see the Federation has 16 ship equivalents with a 48-84 split. Now, as far as ship equivalent numbers, that puts them at the lower end of really the lowest end of the spectrum. And but they do have a good attack defense factor kind of split. Still, they got to build more ships relative to everybody else. I mean, they're only competing against themselves really and defending themselves against the Tholians. So why do they need to build ships? But from the perspective of measuring sort of their military power, if they want to compete in that vein, they have to build more. Tholians have a total of 30 ship equivalents. Again, that's very comparable to the other factions, but the attack to defense factor split is ridiculous. 35 to 107. So the 107 is comparable. The 35, that is just sort of quote unquote laughable. But again, their ships are good. So on the defense factor side, so they're designed that way. They have a low attack, high defense factor, and it'll be really hard to sort of make incursions into Tholian space for any time in it will be hard to attack the Tholians because they're so good at defense. The Tholian Third Fleet. Let's just take a quick look at the Tholian Third Fleet. Okay, we can see that they've got 3 YPCs and basically a cruiser. So a cruiser and these YPCs. What's interesting about the 3 YPCs is that they can form the pinwheel, and it's treated like a base in combat, and they can sort of plug the hole here with the wormhole. Now you can see they've built a base there as well, so that's obviously what they're going to try and do. They're going to try and plug that hole now that they've gone through it and see what's on the other side. So what do we see here? We see the Federation continuing their exploration, responding to the unknown in the top corner, and the Tholians continuing to pound out their economic dominance as they are adopting or integrating these other planets. And of course, exploring, as you can see over my head here, exploring the other side of the galaxy. Now, we know that that's the Hydrons, so it'll be very interesting to see how that works out. Okay, let's, real quick, let's jump into the chat. It sounds like Dan might be here. Daniel, the GRN is indeed on top of the Tholian ship. Okay, so the GRN, what we were just looking at, so the Hydron map was correct. The CC is on top of the Tholian ship, so that works out just fine. Processing 2 different maps sometimes means I get one right and the other and forget the other. Fair enough. Let me see here. Why is there a neutral zone on the west side of the Feds? What? West side of the Feds? Oh, you're talking the neutral zone. So I think when you look at the map, and I'll pull it up. So when we're looking at the neutral zone on the west side of the Feds, those are the minor factions and the little neutral zone that appears around a minor faction. So when a minor faction pops up, it sort of generates its own neutral zone around the planet or around the colony or around the hex that they're discovered in. And they just happen to overlap. So that's why you see that here. So it's not that there's a big neutral zone on the west side. It's just that there's just 2 minor factions right there. And that's what that's all about. Back to the chat. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's head over to, real quick, let's head over to the Lyrans, because we know that the Lyrans, we're going to do the Lyrans and the Gorns back to back, and then we're going to jump into the Romulans and the Klingons. Okay, let's go to the Lyrans. Here we go. Ba-bang. All right, so before we saw that the Hydrons had come through this wormhole, we can see that the Lyrans are building a base now on this wormhole, trying to plug that hole, make sure that there's no issues there. We can see a continued push for the exploration, hence the YSR and the YSR. These are survey ships exploring in these top corners. So this is interesting. Okay. When we look at supply, you can't successfully explore a hex unless you have supply to it. So let's just take a quick look at supply. Lyran supply. If the Lyran supply was set to 3, this is what it would look like. This is what would be in supply. Notice how this YFES is outside of supply. Now, it didn't successfully explore this hex, but let's assume that he's sending it there because he reasonably expects that he's going to be able to do that. So we can guess that the Lyrans have supply 4. Now, the Lyrans have supply 4. This is now the footprint of what they can explore, and we'll see this shortly. If this YFES goes into these hexes, or these ships kind of go into these hexes, then we know that they're at supply 4. It'll also be interesting to see how these ships reach into, we know that this ship here is the cruiser, the Federation cruiser, and it'll be interesting to see how this works out. What I find interesting is that on the Fed side, what they detect is a slow-moving ship, but they don't detect the destroyer. So if there's a YFES and a YDD, they would detect 2 size class 4 ships, one slow-moving, one not slow-moving. And so I think that might just be a typo on the fact of the GM. But either way, it'll be easy enough for them to figure that out once they actually see each other and sort that out. That'll be fairly easy. But yeah, I think the Lyrans now have supply 4, which will be interesting. Let's take a quick look at their EP and fleet cap. All right, so we can see that their EP is at 26. That's the same as the Federation, so they're comparable there. Lower end of the spectrum when it comes to the different factions, but nonetheless, 26 is, as far as their neighbor, a good sort of it's a good number because they're both equal on the economy. Looking at fleet cap, we can see that they have a total of 25 ships compared to the Federation 16, but the split on the attack and defense factors is much closer in the sense of 55 to 123. Now, 123 much bigger than the Federation number, but the 55 versus the 40, what was it, 46 or something? The 40s that the Federation was at, it's a much more sort of even number. What's interesting to note is that the majority of the Federation fleet is cruisers. So if they were to fight, how would that work out? How would there be a split between the ships or any fleet battle between the Lyrans and the Federation? I have a sense that if it was a one pivotal combat, the Feds would come out on top because they have more cruisers. They bring more sort of punch to that particular fight. But it'll be interesting to see, because if you the composition of ships as we see combat sort of evolve going forward, that'll be something to look at. So real quick, no big changes on this map other than what we just noticed there about supply 4. We can see that the Federation is in the bottom corner here, and we've got that split. Now let's head over to the Gorn real quick. This is the Gorn. Let's take a look at their EP. So again, 26.5 EP for the Gorn. Very comparable to the Federation and the Lyrans. So again, sort of lower end of the spectrum, but par for the course for the west side of the map. The outlier for the west is really the Tholians. The Tholians are nearly the economic lead, or at least for all the factions we've seen so far, they are the economic lead, but they're an outlier. Everybody else is in the same sort of boat. We can see here there is this, very nice. So this is a Romulan faction that they discovered. They're happy with the Gorn, and they've got a diplomat there. So this looks like they're very close to be able to bring them into their economy. If they do, with a 2 EP bump, that puts the Gorn at 28.5, much more in line with the rest of the galaxy, so to speak. Let's take a look at their fleet cap. Now, we know that the Gorn have been sort of struggling in the sense they have W-era ships. The W-era ships aren't necessarily all that strong. And we can see that they've got 14 ship equivalents with a 22-54 split. By far the weakest military of the entire game. But they don't need a strong military because they've got no hostile neighbors. They've got nobody that they're dealing with. So not too much of an issue at this point. Also, they've been sort of stuck in W era. So that is a huge sort of factor to consider. Once they start pumping out Y ships, that will change. Let's take a quick look at their home fleet just to see. Where are you here? Home fleet. Yeah, again, W ships, and that's really the limitation. The way the Gorn ships are sort of designed, they are very weak in the early eras, and all we got is W era ships. So as they evolve going forward with Y ships and so on, we'll see that improve as they go. They can also, I mean, we've discovered a wormhole here. Now, obviously, we'll zoom out, but they have not gone through the wormhole yet. You can see they haven't gone through the wormhole, so they don't know what's on the other side. So we'll have to see what that looks like as they go forward. If they send anything through there, the Gorn Third Fleet perhaps has a frigate and an exploration ship, so maybe they'll send something through there in a reasonable amount of time. Again, we were talking about supply. We can see here that the Gorns have supply 4. So this is supply 3. Look at the footprint. Notice how this ship is an outlier. It's outside of that 3 hex. Let's see here. Where's supply? Goodness, I just had it. There we are. So if we set supply to 4, boom. Now we can see that this ship is now, this exploration ship is now inside the outer limit of 4. So I think, based on this, I would assess that the Gorn have 4 supplies. So the Lyrans and the Gorn both have supply 4, and they are, excuse me, pushing to the extent or the limit of that supply range. That's really good. the supply 4 is a huge strategic advantage, and also, of course, when it comes to exploration, a huge tool that they can use to be able to really build out that economy. At this point in the game, if the Gorn just hunker down on exploration, they can really sort of start to catapult as the other factions start to bump into each other and potential conflict begins, assuming conflict begins. All right. So that's the Gorn and the Lyran. Not too much exciting on their maps, again, because they haven't bumped into anybody. Let's take a quick look at the Romulans. Boom. I'm going to switch my head to the other side because let's take a look at this. This is interesting to me. There's a bunch of things. So one of the big things that the Romulans were dealing with was the arrival of a Juggernaut fleet in their space. In the last live stream, we saw a Juggernaut fleet show up. So what happened there? Well, I don't see a Juggernaut fleet anymore, so it would seem that they dealt with it in some way. Let's take a look. So we've got home fleet here. Romulan home fleet. It would seem that Romulan home fleet's got some crippled ships. We've got a Y-era frigate and 2 W-era frigates that are crippled. We've got the W-era dreadnought called the Vulture, which is what they got there. You got a Kingbird, which is a command cruiser. Two W-era warbirds, which is a W-era cruiser, and a commando cruiser they've got here as well. So that's home fleet in their home system. Let's take a look at East. Oh my goodness, there's so many things. Let's start with Rolandus. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. Hold on. Let's take away the ships real quick. Okay. Oh, so okay. I'm getting excited. Okay, let's take a look at EP. Let me not get too excited. Let's take a look at EP. So we can see that the Romulans are at 30.5 EP. So I was just talking about how the west side of the map wasn't as developed economically. Well, it looks like the Romulans are pretty good. They've got 30.5 EP, which puts them in the top tier of the economy. You've got the Tholians, oh my goodness, I've lost track. The Tholians, the Hydrons are at 30. Tholians are over 30. Now the Romulans are over 30. Everybody, the average is really pushing up here. So we've got some big advantages as far as economy going this way. Let's look at fleet cap real quick. We can see that the fleet cap. So I don't see a Juggernaut fleet, but somehow Juggernauts are still represented here with 4 ship equivalents. If I zoom out, yeah, I don't see anything there. So anyways, I don't see any Juggernauts, but the Juggernauts represented on this fleet cap. We can see that the Romulans are 33 ship equivalents with a 51-119 split. So that's a pretty good attack to defense factor split overall. Yeah. Okay. So let's focus on the important things or the exciting things on the map. We look over here, we can see that there is again, the swirly icon, which is an unexplored or unidentified wormhole or gravity well, either or. And we've seen that there is a Carnivon YDD coming through. Now we know from the Carnivon map that this is the wormhole on their homeworld. They've sent a DD or a destroyer through. And so the Romulans have said, oh, okay, we're going to send something over there. The Romulan 1st Legion fleet has a W-era warbird and a WSN, and you can see that they've sent that over there to say hello. You can see there's quite a significant push on their exploration. They've got Leviathan. Oh my goodness, all these names. Okay, so let's start with Leviathan. If I can even find Leviathan. You're there somewhere. All right, let's start with this Tiercellus fleet. So we got a large exploration freighter and an escort frigate. So again, the Romulans have done this. They've regulated these fleets with a bunch of their ships. So we can see that they've got a bunch of exploration happening along here. So large exploration freighter, and Leviathan. Leviathan is probably another exploration fleet. West, Imperial Fleet, Joint Task Force, a bunch of these Joint Task Force, Colossus Fleet. And they've got a gravity well and a wormhole in this bottom sort of southwest corner It would seem as though they have not sent anything through the wormhole or the gravity well, because of course we don't see anything popping out on the other side. We can see that the exploration, is that exploration? Hold on, Romulan. Expeditionary fleet? No. Nope. Getting a handle on all these names is always exciting. Exploration, there we are. So again, we have a YFEL with a frigate escort, and it looks like also a YFB. So maybe that's a destroyer of some type. I'm not sure. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've played the Romulans. We can see here that the diplomat is making the colony friendly. So we can see overall distribution, a big push of Western exploration here, which is interesting, and this sort of needle of exploration on the east side. Now, if we take away the bases, take away the ships to show the bases, this is what I find interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4 to this point here. 1, 2, 3, 4. It would seem as though one of two things is happening. Either they have supply 4, which is possible, or more likely, they're using this convoy to extend the range of their supply. So how does that work? You can move a convoy or a tug within the range of your supply, so up to 3. In this case, if 3 was their supply, you can move it up to 3 hexes away, and then they can extend supply for another up to 3 hexes. So I think this convoy is here and extending supply 1, 2. So that's what's going on here, so that they can continue to explore out to this edge. Very interesting. Okay, let's take a look at the last faction. I'm going to have to switch my head here real quick. Let's take a look at the last faction. Oh, I see another bot. Let's report. Okay. So that has been Halak Shaddam, our kind robot guest has been reported, and we'll see how that goes going forward. All right, let's pull up the Klingons and bring the Klingons up on the map. Ba-bam! All right, here we go. In full effect and stereo sound. So we talked about, the whole thumbnail was about killing bats and birds. Well, the Klingons were the ones killing the bats. In this bottom corner here, you can see that there is a planet that is devastated. This was the location of the Borat. The Borat I often call the Batman faction because their ships look like bats. They have a black and yellow motif, very much like Batman, and the ships all look like bat wings, or like, you know, they look like a bat. So we've taken out the Batman faction. There was a fleet of ships that was Joint Task Force Gamma that had been here. They had moved in, devastated the planet, and moved back to this base. And at the end of the combat round, they retreated, and then they moved up north here to be able to sort of reposition themselves for this Kzinti faction that's here as well. We can see that we left a ship here just because, in light of the Hydran experience, you never know what's going to happen when somebody's unhappy. So we have a developing planet that's unhappy. Because they're devastated, they only produce 1 EP. And so with 1 EP of production, we're just making sure that that ship is there just in case to respond to anything. Once we can see here that the colony is happy. This particular diplomatic cruiser, which is a unique unit for the Klingons, has been sitting there doing that particular mission. Now that they're happy, they will move down here to help make this planet happy, and then the D4 will be repositioned to go elsewhere. You can also see that we've got a number of crippled E2s. These are all casualties from the combat that happened here. There were, just for FYI, there were 2 rounds of combat. The initial round of combat basically took out a planetary ground base, destroyed a frigate, reduced their overall combat effectiveness, and then the second round of combat totaled the rest. They had a total of a destroyer, a frigate, a YBS, and a planetary ground base. So the first round of combat destroyed 2 units, planetary ground base and the frigate, and then the second round of combat destroyed the base and the destroyer. And so, yeah, that's how that worked. Nothing too exciting when it comes to that overall, but that's how that battle sort of happened. You can see here, sort of in preparation for our dealing with the Kzintis, we have continuing exploration to the west to be able to sort of set ourselves up for success here. We have a base here, again, with a number of ships, 2 cruisers, a destroyer, and a frigate. We've got another sort of joint task force that's doing some exploration. That's my joint task force in this map, do predominantly exploration. Excuse me. And then, of course, we've got some continued base building that's happening along the western front here. If we have 2 of these bases, a YBS and a YBS here, that'll help support sort of the initiative to be able to deal with these Kzinti, this is going to be an interesting fight if and when it happens, because first of all, they've got a YDK, not a YBS, so it's a much harder target to take. And let's take a look at the Kzinti Night Fleet. So 3 frigates, a light cruiser, and a YCC. That's not nothing. So the YCL is a 2-5. These frigates are 2-3s. So that's a total of 8 attack factors right there, plus their YCC. That gives them 12 attack factors, plus the 8, 20, and then the YPGB is 21. So 21 attack factors right off the top. The defense factors are going to be a huge pain in my butt because 9 plus 11, that's 20, plus the 16 of the YDK. My goodness. And then the planetary ground base. So overall, I mean, oh my goodness, we've got 20, 36, 38. 38 defense factors that I got to deal with. That is going to be a long, drawn-out battle. We're going to need a lot of... I'll talk about before that sort of that battle occurs, or in the turn just after it occurs. I'll discuss sort of the strategy about going in and how to deal with that. Ideally, with large planetary ground base forces, like if there's a lot of planetary ground bases, you want to potentially have a ground assault faction or component to your ships, like a commando cruiser or commando ship, and or maybe a troop transport. And in the early part of this game, we did that with one of our factions. We attacked them with a troop transport. Excuse me, just got to take a quick sip of water. All right. One of the things I notice when I watch these back every once in a while, and I notice I keep doing this. It's because my mouth gets really dry, and for some reason today I have kind of like something in my throat, and I keep trying to clear my throat, and it doesn't go away. So I apologize that you keep hearing that. Moving along, we have like I say, the ships that are working their way up here, getting ready for and defending against a night attack. One of the things that's important about this sort of disposition of ships, if for whatever reason, the Kzinti decide to reach out and try and attack this convoy that is currently building that YBS, I have a number of ships that are within reaction range or extended reaction range to be able to support them. Because the ships are sitting over bases, and the bases have that triangle, or that diamond, they can respond 2 hexes out. So that basically allows these ships to be able to respond and defend this convoy and the base that it's building, should for whatever reason the Kzinti attack. Now, generally speaking, non-player factions don't go out beyond their borders, generally speaking, but you never know. After all, these guys are hostile to me, so you never know what's going to happen, and I got to make sure I defend myself. So, other than that, let's take a quick look at EP and fleet count, because I know everybody's kind of curious about that. Let's take a look at EP. So while we talked about other factions being at 31.5, 32, 30, the Klingons, because of that taking of this planet, are at 32.5 EP. So from a economic standpoint, the Klingons are still the king of the hill, but not by much, and there's just a matter of time before that changes. I mean, I don't know what to say. It's the Klingons had quite a delta or an advantage on the econ front for quite some time, but that is going to substantially change over the coming turns. In fact, I think it is very reasonable to expect that the Klingons will suffer. Maybe suffer is the wrong word, but they will move down that pecking order as everyone else is expanding. Because one of the things about the Klingon Empire is the exploration and expansion component has really gone down. And I mean, I don't know what to say about it. That's just the way that's kind of evolved. The exploration has really been constrained because of some of the things that are going on. So 32.5, that is the EP. Let's look at fleet cap. Excuse me. So we can see the Klingons have a fleet disposition. You have a 26 ship equivalent. So certainly by no means are we at the top of the pack with like 35, 36 ships, but we have 26, which is not terrible. We have a total of 59 to 100 attack defense factors. So almost a 50-50 split. And as you can see, we've got sort of quite a combination of ships that are out there. We've got cruisers and a couple of destroyers and frigates and things like that. So there's quite a spread of ships that we've got out there. As I mentioned before, there is the strategy as of right now for the Klingons is to be able to build out their fleet. One sec. Sorry, my throat is really getting gummed up here. So yeah, the strategic objective right now is to build out the fleet and to sort of get ourselves ready to be able to take on the Kzinti and anybody else we're going to bump into. Based on the maps that we've seen, we know that there's probably a really good likelihood we're going to bump into some neighbors really soon. And it'd be nice to have a reasonable fleet to do that. We'll see how that goes though. We can see, of course, we've got this base building initiative that's going up in the northeast corner because we've got this big void of supply. And so we're going to build out that supply and sort of really round out the circle. This base here provides the reach here. So we're going to continue to explore and round out the circle at the top. And as I was mentioning, we're building these bases down this November line on this map, and we're going to round out the circle there. So the idea here is while we have a much more sort of diamond-like shape here right now, we're hoping, we being the Klingons, are hoping to be able to round that out as more of a circle as we go. So that's the plan. We'll see how that plan works out. Who knows who we might encounter along the way and what goes on there. One sec. Like I say, I apologize. My voice really seems to be failing me here. It's the joys of live stream. So there we are. That is the round the clock for all the different factions in the game today. Very exciting to be able to see everybody working towards, and the economy's growing. I mean, the overall theme here is that we had the bats and the birds, right? We had the Carnivon at the very start beating up on the birds, taking their I don't want to say hound-like qualities, but as the wolves, the predators that they are, they went out and stomped those Paravian bad actors and took them out. And then, of course, all the other factions along the Fearsome Four, along that east side of the map, really kind of building up their militaries, economies. The Hydrants have encountered the Tholians. That's going to be very interesting. If you look on the west side of the map, of course, the Lyrans have just encountered the Feds. The Feds, of course, have already encountered the Tholians. And it would seem as though many of the factions on the other side of the map that are isolated are on the verge of encountering each other. And so we'll see how that goes. It'll be very interesting to see in the coming turns who bumps into who, where, and when. Because one of the things that you've seen here is that we've displaced the maps for the Romulans and the Klingons still. And the reason why we do that is because we have a sense where the Gorn are. We have a sense, we know where the Lyrans are because of the map with the Hydrons when they went through that wormhole. So we know where the Hydrons are. Sorry, the Lyrans are. We know where the Feds are and the Tholians. So we know they're bumping into each other. So we know where everybody is. So we know the right side of the map. We know the top kind of corner of the map. And so we know that the Gorn, the Romulans, and the Klingons are in this sort of bottom crescent of the map. The Gorn have been very kind to say, like, don't displace my map anymore. Just show me where I am. Great. That's where they are. We still don't know exactly where the Romulans and the Klingons are. So that's why we keep displacing that map. And the reason why we do that is because little things like, for example, when I look at the map, when you watch this live stream, when the other players watch this live stream, they can look at the map and say, oh, they're there. That's where that location is. And they sort of like plot how they can intercept them or interact, or they know what's on the other side. So it'll be very interesting when we do bump into each other. Let's say the Klingons. When we do bump into our neighbors, whoever they are, and when we do bump into them, it'll be interesting to see where we bump into them and how that works out. Now, we know likely, based on the positioning, the Klingons are going to bump into the Carnivons and the Romulans. Where are they going to happen? Is it going to happen sort of up or down on the map, left or right? You know, where is that all going to happen? We'll see. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that all works out. And of course, how those relationships, those interactions go, because as we've seen, the Carnivons are predators, right? They go out there and they stomp things. They do bad stuff to who they perceive to be bad people. The Romulans, not sure. They've been very sort of vanilla, so to speak. Romulans traditionally are very deceptive and devious, but is the player going to play them that way? Who knows? We don't know that for sure. We have not seen the Romulans interact with anybody yet or had any sort of feedback on that. If this kind of intrigue, the role-playing aspect of this game interests you and you've watched the video this far, then I would ask you to be kind enough to give us a thumbs up just to let YouTube know that this is a video that you like. And consider subscribing to be able to help us get to the 500 subscriber mark. That unlocks a feature for us, a community tab within YouTube, and just allows us another way, another channel, another way to engage with you. And so our subscriber goals are really focused around unlocking features within YouTube that allow us to be able to create more content and be more engaging with you here and now. Of course, we would love to be able to include you in our community of players here who love Federation and Empire, turn-based strategy games, Star Trek, sci-fi, and just, you know, love playing games like this. Then if you want to be, we would love to have you part of our community. And if it's something that interests you, then please, again, consider subscribing. Would it be of use to you? Would it be of any value to you to be part of our Discord channel? Right now, the Discord channel is really just functionally for all the players, but is that something you'd like to be a part of? If that is, then please let me know in the comments, and we can come up with a plan to be able to sort of open that up and build that out as another way of engaging with you. This is all sort of a fun journey for us together as we sort of discover doing this online as a group. And so really this is all about just creating community, having fun, and sharing that fun with you. So I'm happy and glad that you've been watching up to this point, that you've enjoyed this content, that you continue to enjoy this content. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you being with us today. What kind of videos would you like to see going forward? We have a couple of ideas in the can, and we'll sort of start pumping those out, but would really appreciate any ideas that you have or input as to what you would like to see in the days coming forward. Now, before I sign off, let me just quickly go to the chat. One last top to bottom here. I can see that Terry has joined us. Terry is in Australia, so the time zone shift there is quite significant. Let's take a quick look here. So Terry joining us. Hi all. Bill says, what's up down under? Again, Australia. Let's see here. Chuck, anytime you take over a planet by combat, you have to garrison it or you lose control. Interesting to note in this game, and we'll have to discuss it. This is a question in live time for the GM. Once we take a planet, and you devastate it, do you have to maintain a military presence there? Interesting to note. In the past, there have been many players who have not done that, and there has been no losing of the planet. Like they don't go independent. So it'll be interesting to know, or ask that right now, live time, to Daniel, is that something that we do? Because that hasn't been something that's happened in the past. But I like the way Chuck is thinking about this, in the sense of, if you take a planet and you devastate it, you got to leave a garrison force there in some way, shape, or form. I like that. Bill says probably a couple of fleets with a ground at group clear the skies, kill the bases. Yep. So Terry says, yes, gives us a use for the little ships, i.e. frigates and things like that. Jim, you are not alone on failing exploration. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate not being a failure all by myself. Terry's laughing at that. He hasn't slowed down. Get some biotine. What is biotine? What is that? Is that like a cream? Do you have like an itch, Chuck? Do you have like a rash? Is that what biotine is? We don't need to talk about your hemorrhoids. It's okay. That's all right. We'll just move on. Okay. Bill, again, this is kind of the poking and jabbing that we do on the Discord channel. If that's the stuff that you kind of like, again, put your comments below. Love to have you there if that's something you'd like. Bill, also 3 new Y ships as well as a base. Oh, is that what the Gorn have been building? They've been building Y ships. We'll have to take a look in our next live stream. Bill, I'm a noob. I get chaffed. I won't feel horrible, but I would like to be around till closer to the end of the game. Yes, absolutely. I mean, depending on your neighbors, just make sure that if you can get to GW Tech as the Gorn kill it in GW. We just need to get there. Jim saying, this is a vile slur on the Carnivons. The Star Empire of Hydrax stands offended by this malicious slur upon our friends, as opposed to of friends, the Carnivons. Yeah, our friends. I don't know what you're talking about there. The Carnivons are predators. They're wolves. Don't deny your nature. Own it. The ISC seem to have gotten away with it. Biotine is for dry mouth. Oh, biotine is for dry mouth. That's interesting. Duh. I've never heard of biotine before. It made more sense for me that, it would be a chafing cream, since you brought it up, Chuck. But if it's for dry mouth, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to try it. I don't know anything about biotine. I'm gonna have to look it up. Thank you for the commentary, the advice, and the help in keeping my palate moist. Yeah, speaking moistly. That's something that that became a bit of a meme last year. Anywho, thank you so much for joining us here today on Star Trek New Worlds. Again, if you like it, hit the like button. If you want to help the channel grow, please, we would very much appreciate it. The subscribe button is right below. Hit that button. Don't be shy. And of course, if you want to join our community, be part of this, then we would love to have you. Would Discord be a good way to do that as well? You let me know. Put that in the comments below. Let me know what you think. In the meantime, I will see you next week. And I guess that's bye for now. Ciao.